We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's June 13th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning, Yoon.
And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Airplane prices are skyrocketing these days to the point that it's too expensive for many Korean expats to fly into Seoul. LA-Incheon round-trip flights now cost around $3,000, which is nearly double what it was like before COVID-19. Industry insiders believe that airplane tickets will continue to spike up till July. Moving on to the second story. Starting next month, office workers who earn more than $4,500 a month will have to pay $12 extra as part of their national pension. Officials have decided to collect a bit more considering the average monthly salary bump among pension subscribers in the country. Last but not least, 10 years ago on this day, K-pop superstars BTS made their debut on the Korean music scene. Since then, they've swept the world by storm. They've become the first ever K-pop group to debut at #1 on Billboard 200. At one point, they were the most tweeted about artists in the United States. To commemorate their 10-year mark and how much they've contributed to promoting South Korea's national image abroad, numerous local authorities have prepared events. And we're gonna dig a bit deeper into the last hashtag, as many of us can relate to it. Many of the country seem to be excited to look back at BTS's decade-long accomplishments. Seoul City has been lighting their main attractions in purple, the color of the group's fandom army. They're also holding Seoul BTS tours comprised of places the group have been before, such as their past music video filming sites. Korea Post is also selling commemorative stamps showing BTS album covers. And the group is also celebrating the 10-year anniversary here in Seoul. Along with Seoul Metropolitan Government, the band has been holding a joint 2-week festival where fans can see exhibitions of the band's stage costumes. And this coming Saturday, the band's leader RM will meet fans at Han River Park in Seoul's Yeouido area. And if I expand the feed here into the studio, Walter, what do you think about many of the people in Korea? I mean, including officials, local authorities rolling up their sleeves to commemorate and celebrate 10 years of BTS hitting and rocking the music industry.
I mean, of course it's a great thing. I mean, hashtag army, hashtag Jimin is my bias. I'm all about the BTS and some of their songs that I don't know. But yes, obviously, I mean, the citizens of South Korea and especially the tourism industry have BTS to thank in many, many ways. Like, it's thanks to bands like them, also Korean movies as well, Korean dramas. We aren't known as the second Korea anymore, in my opinion. Usually a long time ago, we would hear, you know, I'm from Korea, and they'd say, well, which one, North? Because that's the first one they heard. And we always were sick of hearing that. But now I feel foreigners, when they say, oh, are you from Korea? Oh, I love K-pop, I love BTS, I love Blackpink, I love this movie. So I really think bands like this have really pushed Korean tourism up front.
It's definitely a conversation opener, because recently I went to Japan, I went to Universal Studios, and one of the people there was like, are you from Korea? Immediately their second question was, do you know BTS? And I was like, of course I know BTS. Yes. Everyone seems to be knowing it. And as Walter mentioned, instead of hard power, where we're talking about politics and the different agenda we're taking with politicians, BTS and other K-pop groups seem to be elevating South Korea's national image through soft power. And Ji, that's why I'd like to ask if you've actually witnessed or experienced for yourself the promotion power K-pop groups like BTS had for our country and South Koreans like yourself when you go abroad.
Well, I don't really have to go abroad to feel that promotional power, because no other K-pop group has been more emblematic than that of BTS, and I can really feel it when I'm interpreting for people who've come to Korea for conferences and meetings. They would always ask me, they like the song of BTS, they like this member of BTS. I mean, and it's not just me personally through personal experiences that I feel the promotional power, but we know that they've become huge. They've taken over the world, really.
They seriously did.
They did, and phenomenon isn't even the word for them. You know, we need a new word for this group. And I mean, they've been invited to the White House. They've delivered a speech at the United Nations. They've even being mentioned in the president's speech at the Capitol Hill. So we really know that they are a group that hasn't been seen in Korea's K-pop history before.
Exactly, and even though you might not be the biggest fan, it's irrefutably, the fact is that they did elevate South Korea's image. A lot of people have been gotten to know about K-pop, the K-industry, K-culture, or even, decided to come to Korea to visit all the places they've been, which has actually helped our tourism industry out for sure. So congratulations, BTS, to your 10-year anniversary. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. Let's move on to today's discussion topic, TPO. Have you guys ever heard about this acronym? It stands for time, place, and occasion. And people usually think of TPO to decide what to wear. Some jobs or companies have regulations or strict guidelines on what is considered the most appropriate dress code. So today on NewsGen, we're going to delve a bit deeper into dress codes by asking a key question. Are dress codes reinforcing gender stereotypes? This flight attendant is doing her job, making sure passengers are safe by stopping them from getting off through this unsecured passageway. Back in May, a man opened the emergency exit of this airplane some 200 meters above the ground just before landing. This photo spurred online discussions over how appropriate female flight attendants' uniforms were. Some said the skirts and heels worn by female staff looked uncomfortable, even dangerous, considering how cabin crew members are responsible for the safety of all passengers. For years now, some people have been raising concerns that it's not appropriate for airlines to require their female employees to wear skirts or heels. That's why airline companies have begun to offer trousers, but still, many female flight attendants feel like they have no choice but to wear skirts. Today, NewsGen aims to answer 3 questions. 1. Which job occupation has the strictest dress code or uniform policies reinforcing gender stereotypes? 2. How is our generation reacting to this? 3. Then should we still have uniforms or specific dress codes at the workplace? So what's the point of dress codes and uniforms, especially when we are a generation that is trying to get rid of stereotypes, specifically those related to gender? And before we go into the central question, let's talk about the recent flight attendant uniform controversy. As we saw just now, this photo of an Asiana Airlines flight attendant went viral. You can see on the screen what she's wearing. So Chihi, why don't you tell us the main arguments people made online, also the history behind such controversy and how much progress has been made since?
Well, the reason for the controversy was that the short skirts and shoes the flight attendant was wearing seemed uncomfortable for dealing with an emergency where a passenger opened the emergency door in this case. Now, the issue of flight attendant attire is not new. Back in 2013, the National Human Rights Commission recommended that female flight attendants be able to choose to wear pants, not just skirts. But although skirt guidelines have been disappeared since then, some airlines still have that guideline, just like Asian Airlines, or have a tradition of wearing skirts that makes it difficult for the female attendants to really choose to wear skirts because they're conscious of the tradition and other people. And the rules and policies are still very different among all the airlines.
Local media outlets actually reported that some felt pressured to wear skirts even though they had the pants and trousers options, only because they felt that this would not be positively evaluated by upper management, which is also a valid point. The social context still requires a lot of flight attendants to seem professional by wearing skirts. But why don't we include a millennial who's actually worked as a flight attendant to find out what she has to say about the arguments made online and share her own experience? We're now going to hear from a millennial who's actually worked as a flight attendant before. She's been a flight attendant for 4 years. It's Kim-Eunji. Welcome, Eunji.
Nice to meet you. Good morning.
All right, Eunji, did you see the Asiana flight attendant's picture that went viral? And what did you think about this whole controversy?
Do you mean the photo with one female cabin crew wearing a tight pencil skirt and heels on and trying to guard on the open aircraft door?
Exactly, when she was in midair,
I saw the photo and I thought it was very absurd, but at the same time, as a former crew, I thought maybe now people will realize how dangerous it actually is to work as a flight attendant because, safety comes first before the service. And that's one of the first things that we learn in our initial training. And the job is not just about always smiling and representing the airline's image.
For sure. Chihi, do you have any questions for Eunji?
Well, Eunji, what was it like for you? Did your airline have a strict uniform policy, and how does it differ for women and men?
The previous company that I worked for did have a very strict grooming policy, including the uniform policy. But I just thought, of course, we all had different rules, different grooming policies for men and women, but all the strict rules were applied to both men and women equally, I felt like.
All right.
And I've never worn a skirt or high heels, though I think I would look fabulous in them, just to let you know. These legs are, very long. But what's it like working with a skirt and heels on? Like, could you specifically focus on the difficulties you face working in this specific type of attire as your experience as a flight attendant?
Well, if you have worn a skirt or heels before, you would know. You would know that working with the heels on or a skirt, especially those tight skirts that the airlines in Korea make their employees to wear, and it actually greatly and definitely limits your movements in general, especially when a lot of things happen behind the scenes on board. Checking all the safety equipment that are much bigger than your body, or preparing the meals for 200 people with a hot oven in a very tiny little space, or securing all the different heavy items in the right compartments and right cabinets within a very short time, probably 10 minutes before takeoff. And those are very dangerous activities when you're wearing a tight skirts or heels on. And although our skirt wasn't as tight and narrow pencil skirt as the ones from the airlines in Korea, a lot of female cabin crew chose to wear only pants because of those reasons. And it was okay, and it was quite common, honestly, among the female cabin crew.
So yours wasn't a Korean airline, it was an international airline, right?
Yes.
But a question I have is, here in Korea, though, a lot of flight attendants seem to have the choice of wearing pants and trousers, but as I mentioned before, because of the social context or because they fear how upper management might perceive their professionalism, they tend to choose these pencil skirts. Why do you think this is the case?
I think people need to remember and normalize more that safety is the number one reason that they are there on board. And service comes next or after. So if people remember, it's mostly about the safety that they're there, and they're gonna be the ones who will evacuate you in case of emergency, and you will have to depend your life on them in case of emergency, of course. Then I think people will slowly change their awareness to this, and maybe more people will realize that wearing skirt and looking pretty, looking tiny in a tiny skirt is not the most important thing. And
Right.
I think it'll take time to change people's mind in that, but still, yeah, that's what I think.
I think that's great insight as to how this uniform policy should go. My last question is, though, do you think there's a gender angle when it comes to us talking about uniforms or different dress codes at different professions?
In Korean society, especially, I think it is yes, because a lot of strict rules, grooming policies are applied to mostly to female cabin crew. I noticed when I heard from my friends working for airlines in Korea, they said the exactly same thing that what you said. They feel forced to wear skirts and keep certain body weight all the time, and otherwise they wouldn't feel comfortable around their superiors or working in the company, representing the image of the company themselves. So I think it's definitely there is a gender angle to it.
All right, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see more people normalize the fact that it's not about grooming and looking pretty. It's about safety, especially for flight attendants, as we saw through the Asiana flight case recently, that safety comes first, for sure.
Definitely.
All right, thank you so much, Inji.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Inji.
All right, and what about you guys here in the studio? Do you guys think that gender issues being meshed with dress codes and uniforms is appropriate, and have you actually witnessed or experienced that?
Well, I think like this is a really hard subject to talk about, given that we're also going through a period in our generation where gender identity is actually very, a lot of people are changing their gender identity as well. So this also means that it will come along with what they have to wear. But if we take it from a traditional standpoint, men, in white collar jobs were expected to wear the white shirt, the tie, and very much the neutral colors like gray, black, or white, right? Now, we are seeing a lot of change though. Example, sales workers, though they are supposed to be also very neat and tidy, depending on which sales area. So you might see someone in a shoe store, for instance, wearing very casual clothes, but maybe wearing the shoes that they want to sell. And let's also take this industry, for example. Like I once appeared on TV wearing a hoodie and a beanie. You can probably find that somewhere. And I was actually called out and said that I looked like a so-called slob. So, someone criticized me as well, meaning that they still people out there who have standards, for example, even this industry.
And did you find it unfair?
I thought I looked okay.
Well, you had your own concept for that particular episode.
Yeah, we did,
That's
and
why.
they didn't get that.
But what about you, G? Do you think specific uniforms or dress code policies required by a specific industry or company could reinforce gender stereotypes?
Oh yes, definitely. And many industries have become more gender sensitive to this issue, and how dress codes can really form these unwanted sexual bias.
Right.
And there was this one case 3 years ago, in fact. There's this character that represents policewomen in the country. It's called Posuni, and its character changed for the first time in 21 years. Before, it used to be wearing a skirt, but now it changed to it's now wearing a pants, and it doesn't have eyelashes anymore.
Like the fake long lashes.
The long lashes, and it has its hair tucked behind its ears now. So they really tried to change this character to look more gender neutral, and this is becoming a thing in many different industries. They're really becoming sensitive to how dress codes could create these bias, and are changing these characters.
Exactly.
And mascots.
I think because society is now requiring people to be a bit more sensitive and understanding that we can see a very, very wide spectrum of what we can identify as, more industries are becoming gender sensitive. But there are still a lot of companies and industries that don't seem to be the most sensitive about this. So why don't we list them out, starting with Chihi?
Right. It was in the past too, and I think there are industries out there who would feel guilty
After hearing what you have to say?
Yes, exactly. So department store clerks, nurses, bank tellers, they're still often required to wear skirts as their uniforms. And although this trend has changed recently, there still are many professions that require, especially the service jobs, that require the skirted uniforms, cosmetics salespeople as well. But of course, pants have become more available, but it's really the culture as well that kind of not force, but people feel like they have to still be wearing skirts, especially, the females, of course. And in the case of school uniforms too, the girls, they have the choice of wearing pants as well, because pants uniforms have become available too. But it's not really 100% the options of the students, because they still have that culture of wearing skirted uniforms.
Right, for sure. And Walter, I would like to ask you another question then. Sometimes it's gone too severe to the point that some people have decided to file against court. Can you give some cases like that?
Okay, so recently, I actually mentioned a little earlier that now people are becoming more aware of gender identity and sexuality as well. A huge topic of recent actually happened in the LGBTQ plus community, and this also came down to what not to wear. So in May of this year, a US district court actually denied a high school student from Harris County who identifies as LB, but what was a biological male who identifies as a female but likes women, just to get it out there, and who has transitioned to a female, but not legally, no surgery has been done. Now, she requested that she wear a dress at her school formal or her school graduation, but was denied by the school, saying males should be wearing formal attire that suits males, which are white shirt, black tie, black coat, black shoes, etc. So basically she was told, if you don't wear this, you're not going to your graduation.
So this controversy and problem is ongoing, right?
It's still ongoing at the moment.
We'll see how it has to end up now. And before I ask you to the final question, we're going to hear what our viewers had to say on today's topic. We asked them whether they've witnessed or experienced gender discrimination from a specific uniform or dress code policy at the workplace. So take a look at the screen to find out what 3 of our viewers had to say on today's topic. Leon Teo said previously here in Singapore, Muslim nurses were not allowed to wear their headscarves known as a tadang or hijab in the workplace, but they started allowing it only in November 2021, so it hasn't been that long. Anmol Agrawal said men would probably benefit the most from skirts since it doesn't constrict the area. Although I do think it looked very weird, I feel that it's a matter of social acceptability more than anything. And I don't think it's being weird. I think it's just not practiced enough. And Shay Luda Midnight said, on a positive note, I can say in the USA, my job has become more flexible with uniforms and more open to hair textures of all cultures. That was surprising but needed. You know, speaking of hair textures, this is a really interesting angle too, because here in Korea, we're living in such a homogenous country, so we don't really know about like the diverse hair cultures we have there. But that's a very interesting point that Shay mentioned. Now, lastly, I would like to give you guys the final question. How would you guys like to see uniforms and dress code policies go then, specifically in a way that doesn't reinforce gender stereotypes, but still keep that level of professionalism?
So I honestly think there does need to be some guidelines to follow when it comes to certain jobs. Now, I think anything too exposing for males or females is unprofessional unless you're in that sort of business that requires you to wear that and you're okay with wearing that. So I think we should really look at the whole situation, the job, and whether it is appropriate to wear that sort of outfit, uniform, etc. But interestingly enough, I know that we have focused not just on females but also males. I've had the experience as well where males in the company I used to work with were very strict on their attire, so we could only wear a shirt and tie. Where the women in our office could wear whatever they liked. So I felt that was quite unfair. So I do understand the point of views from both sides.
But there should be a level of fair standards,
exactly,
I think, for sure. So. What about you, Jihi?
I agree with Walter that we need to have minimum guidelines considering the type of work, the industry, and the occupation you're in, and it must not damage your professionalism as well. But men and women, they shouldn't be required to wear a certain type of attire just because they're male or female. Like the skirts or ties or, like you said, like a shirt. As long as they don't damage the professionalism and they look smart, depending on the type of work you are doing, I think people should be really given the freedom to wear whatever they like, and they should be given the freedom to express their own identity.
I think the main takeaway for today is to expand the definition of professionalism. I think earlier Eunji mentioned it. Professionalism isn't just about grooming yourself or looking like a traditional female or traditional male. That's just unfair. Professionalism should be prioritizing what's needed at your job. For instance, for flight attendants, as we learned, it's about safety. And that's all we have for you today. We'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee.
It's a pleasure.
And Walter Lee.
Always lovely to be here.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.